Hey guys, welcome back to Challenge in the Field. So our article we're going to go over today is called it's a statewide assessment of youth sport and recreation related injuries using the Emergency Department Administrative Records. I know it's a long title, but we found it in the Journal of Adolescent Health in case anyone was interested. So it's an original research study. It was conducted. They went through all of the ER records for the state of Kentucky, and we're going to call it exploratory since they didn't already have a system set up to monitor the data that they were going to collect. So they're really trying to figure out how many injuries there were, how they happened, and what I guess how much was billed in the 2-year period that they were looking over, which was 2010 to 2012. And they're specifically looking into unintentional sports-related injuries. So unintentional injuries, and then smaller category, sports-related injuries. At the middle and high school age kids, we're talking 10 to 18 years old. So they go through all the data, and they find that 20% of unintentional injuries in the state of Kentucky are sports-related injuries. And that's a total of 31,898 injuries. Also, 70% of that 31,000 were males, meaning that guys were injured more than twice the amount of the girls. And the peak number of injuries, sport-related injuries, was between the ages of 13 and 15 years old. So when you look at how the injuries happened, they looked at they found that the most common way that the kids were injured were being struck by something or against something, like another person or another piece of equipment. And the top 3 types of injuries, all combined, were 75% of all of the sports-related injuries. And those were cuts and bruises, sprains and strains, and fractures. So all 3 of those together accounted for 75% of sports-related injuries. 69% of those sport-related injuries were to the arms and legs. And for the arms, it was fractures as the number 1, and then sprains and strains. And for the legs, it was sprains and strains, and then cuts and bruises as most common. They went into billing next. There was over $40 million of charges billed for the 2-year period just for the sports-related injuries. That's a lot. And the sprains and strains were a majority of those charges, with more than $11 million. Now, they looked at median amounts billed, not average amount billed, median amount billed. So they took all of the numbers, all of the billing numbers that were there, put it all in a line from least to greatest, and they found the exact middle. That's the median. That's what we're talking about. So it's not an average. It doesn't matter what the high is, doesn't matter what the low is, it's just what the middle number is. So that for sprains and strains was about $941 per visit to the ER. For all the sports-related injuries, the median amount billed was $972 per injury. So I do want to say that it is very, very important. That is not an accurate representation of what was paid for those treatments, because most people have insurance, so that helps out a lot with the cost of that. So $972 was what was billed, not necessarily what was paid. Something interesting that I found in this article, 28,000 injuries in the ER were actually excluded because there wasn't complete documentation to note whether they were unintentional injuries or whether they were sports-related injuries. So that 31,000 could be somewhere around 50, which is pretty crazy. So I know there's a lot of information. We're going to boil it down to this. Most common ER visits are for cuts and bruises, then sprains and strains, and then for fractures. Came out to about $972 per ER visit. And, not all sports-related injuries need to go to the ER. Sprains and strains are kind of our specialty at Return to Play Elite. If we suspect something more, like a fracture, we'll send you to the right place. We'll get you an x-ray. We're here to help you navigate the healthcare system, because it is pretty confusing in where you should go and when you need to go to that place. We're all about helping you save some time, save some money. So keep us in mind. We had a patient come in who fell on his wrist, didn't know whether he needed to go get an x-ray. We said, let's take a look at it, ruled out the x-ray, and gave him things to go home with to start feeling better right away. If he went to go get that x-ray first, they might have said, take it easy, take a couple weeks off, don't do anything, wait for the pain to go away, and you should be good to go. He's a baseball athlete. You're going to go from doing nothing to throwing, something's going to happen, and pain's just going to come back. So keep us in mind. We don't just tell you what's wrong and let you go. We figure out what's wrong and give you something to start feeling better right away. So that's all we have for this episode of Challenging the Field. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something, and we'll see you next time.